Breaking news! I am Carly Milsick with Fox News Channel, and boy, do we have some news for you!
Jana,
Haley,
Sydney,
Philip. As the 1960s are coming around, we have news on the Vietnam War. President Kennedy and Johnson has increased the U.S. involvement of the Vietnam War. We have Jana now at the White House live. Let's go to her, Bob.
we are currently here at the White House where Kennedy is consulting his cabinet about how many extra people he thinks need to be drafted for the Vietnam War. Kennedy believes that more troops in Vietnam will stop communism from invading South Vietnam. He also believes that the American soldiers will be inspired by the other troops. Back to you, Carly.
Thanks, Jana. Only 2/3 of the military was volunteers. Every available man with the proper age was collected by the select.
sorry to interrupt, Carly, but we have a serious situation on the 5th of May. Men are trying to hurt themselves to avoid war. We have a man known as Philip, and he's trying to make a scene and trying to break his leg to avoid having to go to war. Do you have anything to say about this before you continue?
Yes, my neighbor got lifted from the draft because he has a family, and that's not right because I have a family too, and I should be lifted.
And we are not going to be showing that on live TV. The world has not gone too crazy yet. As you can see, there is a lot going on down here. Back to you, Carly.
We have been getting many phone calls this evening with all the same questions. What is the Gulf of Tonkin incident? Well, you have the questions and we have the answers. Take it away,
The Gulf
Jana.
of Tonkin incident was the incident that brought the United States even more into the war. It involved two different situations, both involving Vietnamese strikes from torpedo boats. This is what led to Congress signing the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, which gave John F. Kennedy the authority to assist any Southeast Asian country to fight communism.
Thanks, Jana. I hear that we are having difficulties fighting this war and have some info on the ground war and aerial war. Take it away, Sydney.
Thanks, Carly. I'm here to discuss the difficulty of fighting on the ground and in the air. The ground war was so hard due to the fact that the area was so harsh and that it was hard to survive. Ground strategy was used to destroy missions for the U.S. aircraft. Aerial war in the Vietnam was difficult because of them being supported by China and the Soviet Union. It made Vietnam's military stronger and better. In March 1965, Johnson authorized the sustained bombing by U.S. aircraft of targets north of the 17th parallel. Now back to Carly for some more news.
Thanks, Sydney. There has been an increase in war opposition due to the television increased network news and crews, along with cameras, are bringing the war in a vivid view with the horrifying detail into the American living rooms, something that has never happened before. Off to Kaylee with some live news with some families.
Yes, we should not have to sit here and watch young men die in war. We watched our own son die on screen.
As you can see, families are very upset about this. Back to you, Carly.
Thanks, Kaylee. As you can see, the Vietnam wasn't just a politician's war. It affected the families as well. Real people were dying. Friends, family, and unless you live under a rock, you are forced to watch it every evening at 6 o'clock. Now to Sydney with some info on President Nixon's and his new policy.
President Nixon's main policy is Vietnamization. This is gradually withdrawn American troops while South Vietnamese take over most of the fighting. This is an ambitious program because domestic anti-war sentiment has to happen first. Nixon does not want to be the first president to lose a war, so he soon widened the war. Without approval from Congress, he attacked communist hideouts in Cambodia, which is Vietnam's neighbor. In other news, he was also the first president to lose a war and almost impeached. He was successful in withdrawing from Vietnam, though, which 3 other presidents were unable to do. Now to Carly with the Kent State shooting.
Thanks, Sydney. On May 1st, students at a small Ohio university called State Kent staged a demonstration against the invasion of Cambodia. Students smashed in downtown Kent, protesting what they felt was established supports of the war. A reserved officer training forces went to Kent Court. Building on campus was burned. Military forces stormed the Kent University with full gear. Students were shot and wounded. Now to Jana with some info on the My Lai massacre and the Pentagon Papers.
Thanks, Carly. The Pentagon Papers was the name given to the secret Department of Defense study of the United States, political and military presence in South Vietnam in 1945 to 1967. It was released to the American public when Daniel Ellsberg, who worked on the study, wanted it released as the war dragged on, and the U.S. military presence in South Vietnam increased to more than 500,000 troops in 1968. He opposed the war and believed the public should know about what was actually happening and wanted to put it in the papers. He photocopied the report and, in March 1971, gave the copy to the New York Times. They subsequently published the series of articles based on the report's findings.
Hello guys, for some background information on the Tet Offensive. The word Tet is Vietnamese for festival, and Tet is the Lunar New Year in Vietnam, and is the most important holiday on their calendar. It was so important that there was a ceasefire truce that happened over a 3-day period so they could all celebrate in peace. But in 1968, General Diem had a special offensive to take advantage of this holiday. This was a simultaneous attack from North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong guerrillas on major cities and military bases in South Vietnam. He believed this would create an uprising of South Vietnamese, which then would rally to the communist cause and overthrow the Saigon government. This holiday started on January 30th, 1968, and just after midnight was the first attack. It was the most famous attack during this was on the American embassy, where a few Cong reached the outer wall and got into the compound, but they were killed very quickly. And then the Americans were warned of an impending attack, and they were not taken by surprise. This was all over by March 1968, and the Tet Offensive was a disaster for North Vietnam, as they got none of their objectives militarily. The cities and villages attacked were still in American and South Vietnamese hands, and the populace rallied with the South Vietnamese side, not the communists. Now, off to end the war with
After negotiations and bombing in North Vietnam in December 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed in January 1973. Under these, U.S. forces were completely withdrawn. This still did not end war for Vietnam, and fighting was still going on until April 1975. When Saigon fell to the communists, in all, the total cost of lives was 50,000 American lives, with 400,000 South Vietnamese and an estimate of 900,000 North Vietnamese lives.
Thanks for watching!